Our team, comprising myself, Marina, Max, and Leo, had left the confines of college behind many years ago. Today, we are bloggers who venture into the shadows, chasing whispers of secrets and unearthing chilling legends. The reality of our quests often turned out to be far from what we expected, but the thrill of the unknown only intensified our appetite for the darkness. Leo, my old companion, always kept his younger brother Arseni, known to us as Senya, close by. Senya was on the brink of his 6th birthday and was a constant companion on our expeditions. His parents, lost in the world of work, were rarely home, so he reveled in our sinister adventures. Fear was a foreign concept to him, and more often than not, he led the way, drawn to the darkness like a moth to a flame. We boast a devoted, albeit modest, audience, who often guide our journeys with their tips and comments. My role is to meticulously prepare information about our destinations and manage our channel. Leo serves as our unflinching driver and organizer, deftly plotting each journey and ensuring our equipment is ready for the impending unknown. Marina and Max handle our provisions, while each of us carries personal items, along with stun guns and pepper spray as insurance against unforeseen threat stalls we have yet to employ. On a Friday evening, I delved into the comments, seeking new places for our weekend excursions. Most were the typical fabrications meant to lure us in, as I had learned to discern through the endless labyrinth of deceit. But then, something caught my eye, a tale of an abandoned housing complex hidden deep within a sprawling forest. The project had been abruptly halted during construction for reasons shrouded in mystery. Rumors spoke of an otherworldly force intervening, halting the build, though few truly believed the whispers. I had heard faint echoes of this story in the past, but this time I chose to probe further. And indeed, the rumors proved true. Only a single unfinished structure stood, a skeletal edifice of 2 concrete floors, lacking windows, doors, or any semblance of completion. The eerie photograph and chilling description confirmed what I knew in my gut. This was the place we were destined to explore. "Hello," came the drowsy voice of my childhood friend. "Hey, Leo, I found something peculiar." "What is it?" Leo's voice sharpened as he picked up on the eagerness in my tone. I told him about the abandoned housing complex, describing every ominous detail I had discovered. My friend was immediately intrigued. "Finally," he exclaimed. He had grown weary of the urban ruins teeming with vagrants and outcasts. "I'll message the others to bring walkie-talkies, since cell reception in the woods is likely to be spotty. By the way, Slav," his tone shifted to one of concern, "Senya isn't coming with us. He's fallen ill." "What about you?" "I'm still going. Mom agreed to stay with him. She managed to get the day off." "All right. Good night, Leo." I hung up the phone and turned my gaze back to the laptop screen, which displayed a chilling image of the unfinished residential complex. The eerie appearance of the place only strengthened my resolve to visit it. -1 in the morning. The first light of dawn was seeping through the window. I stood before the mirror, brushing my teeth, knowing Leo would soon arrive to pick me up. He was currently gathering Marina and Max. My belongings were already packed, having been readied late last night. After a few minutes, the phone rang. I silenced it, grabbed my things, and locked the door behind me as I stepped out of my apartment. Making my way down the stairs, I moved quickly, careful not to disturb the sleeping neighbors. The only one who might have been awake was old Uncle Mitya, who always rose before the sun. "Savik." Leo stood about 10 meters from my building, waving me over. I walked up to him and embraced him like a brother. Marina and Max were already in the car. They hadn't gotten out, given the difficulty of maneuvering around the items we were bringing along. We got into the car, Lyoha at the wheel and me in the passenger seat. "Where are we going?" Marina asked, leaning between our seats. "The forest," Max answered, having received Lyoha's message the night before about bringing the walkie-talkies. "Really? How far?" "To the neighboring town," I said, opening the website again and handing the phone to them. "Here, take a look." Then I turned to Lyoha. "I suggest we spend some time exploring the town first before venturing into the woods." Lyoha nodded and released a handbrake. "Let me tell you about our group. Lyoha has been my close friend since childhood. We met when we were 5 years old in kindergarten and have been inseparable ever since. His blonde hair perfectly complements his striking green eyes. He's focused, serious, and stern, but also incredibly kind and humorous. It's no wonder Marina fell for him instantly. Speaking of her, Marina, whom Lyoha affectionately calls Marishka, is 6 months younger than us. She's lively, gentle, and sensitive, always ready for an adventure. Max is her brother, fun-loving and cheerful, the life of the party. As for me, I have curly hair and brown eyes. Though I may come across as ordinary, my friends see something special in me that makes me blend seamlessly into our little team. We made our way to the neighboring town in about an hour, with a few short stops to stretch our legs and refuel at gas stations. Compared to the town we were headed to, our own city was minuscule. Yet, despite its size, the streets were almost deserted, enhancing the eerie atmosphere. We pulled up outside a small cafe, our stomachs growling for sustenance. Marina and Max went inside to place our orders, while I stayed back to assist Lyoha in checking the equipment. Once we settled at our table, a familiar surge of excitement washed over me. Clutching my beloved camera, with which our obsession with mysteries had begun. "Slav, put it away for now, use it later," Lyoha warned me. Yes, I'm doing it now," I replied, placing the camera gently on the table. Half an hour later, we left the cafe and began our walk through the town. "What's next?" Max asked, his eyes glimmering with uncontainable anticipation. "Let's take a brief stroll through the town before moving on," I suggested, still holding onto my camera. "I don't want to risk exploring the ruins on a full stomach." Everyone agreed, and we started our exploration of the town. The narrow streets were lined with cafes, residential buildings, and offices, creating an unsettling maze for us to wander through. The few passers-by added to the mystique, their fleeting presence enhancing the enigmatic ambience of our quest. Most of the people we saw were young children, released from the tedium of school for the weekend. Occasionally, we spotted teenagers or people our own age. Among the passers-by was a tall, gaunt girl with long, dark hair, the tips dyed a striking, unnatural pink. She wore a vivid green sweater and black jeans, which made her appear even thinner. Her gaze locked with mine, and her narrowed eyes seemed to be trying to recognize us. A smile broke across her face, and she rushed toward us, shouting with unrestrained joy, "Lyoha, Dandelion." We turned in unison. I recognized her immediately. It was our old childhood friend, Tanya. She had changed significantly over the years. I opened my arms wide as she ran to me, wrapping me in a tight embrace. The happiness we all felt at that moment is beyond words. As I mentioned, Tanya was a friend from our childhood, 2 years older than me. We first met when I was sitting glumly on a playground, waiting for Lyoha. She approached me, drawn to my sad expression, and nicknamed me Dandelion because of my curly hair. She became a beacon of courage, intelligence, and fairness to us. It was under her guidance that we embarked on our nocturnal adventures in search of mysteries. With her leading the way, we snuck out of our homes exploring courtyards and slipping into forbidden places and abandoned buildings. Our friendship thrived for 5 years, until she moved to another town. We stayed in touch for a while, but eventually lost contact. The name of the town she moved to faded from memory, leaving behind only vague traces of our past. Lyoha approached us, and Tanya threw herself into his arms, their embrace lasting long and heartfelt. We had missed each other deeply, and tears of joy welled up in our eyes. None of us had anticipated this unexpected and joyous reunion. "Who's that?" Marina felt a twinge of jealousy, despite knowing there was no real cause for it. Tanya glanced at her, letting go of Lyoha and wiping away her tears with the sleeve of her bright sweater. I explained the situation and introduced Max and Marina to Tanya. Lyoha and I shared our adventures since her departure, while she recounted her own. We discovered she hadn't abandoned our shared passion and had formed her own team, more professional and equipped, yet not bloggers like us. Tanya explained she was on her way to meet them and invited us to join her and get acquainted with her team. Tanya's team consisted of only 3 members: Tanya herself, Kira, and Misha. They were all older than us and appeared more serious. Misha struck us as overly strict, a bit too rigid, and unnervingly meticulous. He had a license to carry firearms and possessed rifles and a couple of pistols in his collection. His sleek new Mercedes and cutting-edge gadgets suggested he was quite well off. Kira, his girlfriend, was cheerful and upbeat, Tanya's best and only friend. She was remarkably beautiful, and they had been friends since Tanya moved to their city. We were surprised such a team hadn't ventured into blogging. "How come you're here?" Misha's cold stare pierced right through me. I swallowed the knot in my throat and for the 3rd time recounted our plan and the destination we were headed toward. They seemed intrigued by our suggestion, and Tanya eagerly agreed to join us, while the others followed her lead. We made our way to our vehicle, leaving them behind to wait for us. Half an hour later, Lyoha drove up to them, his headlights cutting through the darkness, while another engine rumbled in response. Lyoha set the GPS, and we followed the designated route, with Misha trailing us. The drive took about 2 hours. We stopped at the edge of the forest and stepped out of our vehicles. "We'll go on foot from here," Max announced as he retrieved the gear from the trunk. I reviewed the route to our destination. It would take around 15 minutes on foot. We hoisted our backpacks and bags, making our way into the heart of the forest. Lyoha and Misha lingered by the vehicles, engaged in a conversation before joining us. The girls carried lighter loads than we did. After around 15 minutes, we arrived at the abandoned housing complex. Before us stood 2 grey, decaying concrete floors, barely overgrown with moss. Large square and rectangular openings in the walls were meant to be windows, but it seemed they were never meant to be. Scattered in front of the structure were planks, bricks, and construction materials, all covered in moss. While some might have been salvageable, most were useless. The atmosphere was chilling, imbued with a haunting aura. A sense of foreboding washed over me. "Slavic, what a coward you are," I thought to myself, shaking my head as I mustered up my courage and took the lead. My friends, surprised by my unexpected display of initiative, as I usually lingered at the back, helping Lyoha carry gear, followed me. Tanya's team trailed after them. Max, Misha, and Kira meticulously set up the cameras, positioning them around the perimeter of the abandoned structure, including the area in front of it. I examined the building closely, each of its 3-meter-high floors, finding familiarity in the eerie surroundings, marred by the walls covered in strange marks, as if someone had desperately tried to break through them. The only exception was the space where we had decided to set up our base, if it could even be called that. Tanya and Marina focused on its arrangement, while drhorror and I checked on the others. At the end of the day, both teams gathered together. The women took care of preparing the food, while the men discussed our plans for the next day. The place exuded a palpable sense of unease that settled in all of us. Misha pulled me aside to voice his concerns. "What is this place? Why did you choose to come here?" I read about it in some comments, I murmured, feeling his piercing gaze on me. "So, you're bloggers." It seemed Tanya hadn't mentioned that detail when introducing us. "Yes, we are," I nodded, and the conversation came to an abrupt halt. We returned to the others. For dinner, we had only meager sandwiches, though everyone longed for something heartier. Nobody blamed Marina and Tanya for the lack of food. It was better than nothing. Soon, we all settled down to sleep. Someone, perhaps even me, turned off the single glowing lamp. Darkness swallowed us, blanketing everything in its inky embrace. My eyes were heavy, and exhaustion washed over me like a tidal wave. I remember hearing one of the couples, likely drhorror and Marina, exchanging whispers of affection, such as "I love you," but I didn't pay much attention. We all fell asleep around 9 in the evening. We might have stayed up later, but we agreed to rise early, so we retired for the night. I woke in the middle of the night to the unsettling sound of claws scraping against the concrete walls. The cold was biting, but manageable. I crawled out of my sleeping bag and approached the passage. In an instant, I was wide awake, clamping my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream, my face turning pale as I sank wordlessly down against the wall. My eyes showed terror, my body trembled, and I dreaded looking back. It only took a few seconds to understand the source of the sound. It was there, clawing at the concrete with its front limbs, as though trying to tear through the obstacle. The impossibly thin body was suspended to meters off the ground, held up by 4 limbs tipped with spear-like points. The limbs extended about 3 meters when straightened and bent half a meter above the body. The entire body and limbs were covered in burns, as though charred. The head was crowned with patches of hair that hung down in tangles. I couldn't see its face, nor did I want to. Luckily, it hadn't noticed me. I remember the chilling sound of those spears tapping on the ground. It drew closer quickly, the echoes pounding in my ears. My heart pounded so loudly, I feared it would burst from my chest. I dreaded the moment I would come face to face with the hideous visage I so desperately did not want to see. Horror gripped me, forcing me to wait for the inevitable. My hand traced an invisible cross on my chest, my lips silently whispering prayers. The sounds came closer and closer. Then, suddenly, complete silence. It was followed by a loud, piercing scream that tore through the night. Tears streamed down my face. I realized this might be my last night alive. The others woke up abruptly, their faces filled with confusion and fear. Seeing me in such a state, they immediately knew something terrible had happened. The scream rang out again, a soul-wrenching sound. Someone resumed scratching at the concrete wall. The men quickly shielded the women. Misha swiftly grabbed a shotgun from his backpack and rushed to the passageway, loading the gun and preparing to shoot. Kira, tears streaming down her face, begged him not to. Suddenly, both froze and turned pale. Horror filled their eyes. The third terrifying scream echoed throughout the building. Tanya and Marina huddled in a corner, clinging to drhorror and Max, who were ready to protect them. What happened next, I cannot say, for my nerves gave out, and I blacked out. I awoke in the same position, leaning against the wall. The tears on my cheeks had long dried. The others slept nearby, huddled close together. The sun shone brightly, but I could not believe it was all over. I pinched myself, and to my surprise and relief, I felt pain. Joyful tears flowed down my face. I quickly got up and rushed to wake the others. "We're alive. Wake up. We're alive." My voice trembled, but my lips formed a smile. They opened their eyes, hearing my words that we were alive. Everyone woke up quickly. Our joy knew no bounds. We embraced and kissed each other, crying and expressing how much we loved one another. The preparations were rushed, driven by a single desire: to escape that cursed place. All the cameras were destroyed, which brought relief, almost joy. We moved quickly to the cars, as though we were fleeing death itself. After stowing our belongings in the trunks and on the seats, we climbed into our vehicles and sped away. A moment of dread struck me as I glanced into the rearview mirror and felt a knot rise in my throat. At the edge of the forest stood a creature, staring unblinkingly at us. Its face was finely visible, to bottomless eye sockets, and a wide mouth stretching to its ears, if it even had them, twisted into a chilling grin full of sharp, elongated teeth. None of us could understand why we had chosen that specific place to stay. The only explanation was the allure of untouched walls, as though they were sacred. We were grateful for the untouched surroundings, but the mystery remained as to why the creature had spared us. I suspected the place had been blessed by builders who might have also sought refuge from it. Throughout the journey back, and even after our return home, we avoided discussing the events of that night, as though erasing them from our minds like a bad dream. Senya was kept in the dark about the ordeal. Over a short time, we grew close with Misha and Kira. Our connection with them and Tanya continued even after our return home. We gave up our pursuit of the mystical forever. The channel was shut down, and we lost our entire audience, but it didn't matter. What was important was that we had survived. Yet the horrific face of the creature I saw as we fled haunted my memory. Sometimes it visits me in my dreams. I fear it. I fear that it will find me, take me, and take my friends. In every dream, it draws closer. I sense its presence. Someone scratches at my front door.